Hey guys, welcome to the Off Duty podcast, the one-stop shop where we talk love, work, pleasure, and how we are going to create the lives that we desire.
So, grab a beverage, get cozy, and let's get ready for today's conversation. Hi, listeners.
Hi listeners, hi Danny.
Hi, Ben.
How are you? I've got pins and needles. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Is this the bit where we're asking about each other about the week? Or
Listen, it looks like you already jumped again, so you better take it away.
So I had my meant to be.
Oh my gosh, we love to get it out of our system so we're not carrying it. It wasn't for you to carry.
It really wasn't
It
for
wasn't
me.
for you to carry.
A lot of
I
this
love that for you.
is not for any of us to carry. It would just.
And you know what I
suck
like?
the load.
I think it's really nice to actually look at meant to be's as these emotions. They're not supposed to be carried by our fragile, beautiful bodies. We're too beautiful for this. Do you know? So tell us about that. Tell us.
Tell you about it.
If you want to. Tell us about your week, or tell us about what. Tell us what's poppin'.
So I was just kind of like, you know, when you just kind of wake up and you're immediately. A lot happened at the same time.
You just have a screenshot.
Oh God. I just woke up and I just felt like really overwhelmed.
Sorry, do you know what's in my head?
Go on.
I'm so sorry.
No, go on.
There's this tweet of this little girl. I'm sure you've seen it. Waking up in the morning, think about different things.
I know that was exactly it. I woke up. I was so slow. Like I was just doing everything so slowly. In my head, I was like, Daniela, don't go to work. Don't go to work.
Don't you dare.
But I was still like, no, I'm off because I had some annual leave prepared for this week anyway. Because to be fair, like a few weeks ago, I was like, I'm gonna need some time off, like in the near, almost as soon as possible future.
Tomorrow.
So I booked it as sort of soon as possible, but
it
wasn't soon enough. Not soon enough. And I was just kind of like, right, I've already got annual leave booked. Like I've got things to do. Like let me just try and not just show up to work. Do you know what I mean?
Like a true capitalist bitch.
Because unfortunately there's limited amount of sicks and
yikes. You've not been taking your sick for this year, babe.
I haven't, but it's also a long year.
I'm screaming.
It's a long year.
I'm screaming.
Anyway, I was just like, Daniela, just breathe through it. You're doing group. It's not going to be long. It's not going to be deep. Just you get in.
You can
just
do it.
Boom, 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 and you get it out of the way. Do you know what I mean? Unfortunately, that's not how the mind works. She said we need to stay home. So I literally got into work, but 40 minutes later I was leaving because it was just a lot. And it's not really just work in itself. I think the work was just the cherry on top. The
sprinkle.
What's that saying about the straw that broke the camel's back?
Yikes.
That was basically work. So I ended up just coming home, and I've been off most of this week, to be completely honest.
Love that for you.
So yeah, it's been a bit of a rough week. It's been tough, but we got a movie night coming up. So I think that movie night will be great. Also, you know, the sad thing that happened this week is the weather did not allow us
anyone
to go to these bloody falls that I've been wanting to go to for like God knows. It's gonna be sunny at some point on a Saturday, so we will go to these falls. I will go to these falls.
They will see you.
They will see me
this summer
before this summer's out. So
period.
It's just a matter of when.
Period.
Anyway, we're trying to push through, trying to like breathe through like the heavy emotions and like have that positive self-talk when that negative one comes, and kind of just do some positive things and rest and all this type of jazz. So small steps. Yeah.
Sending you love and light and energy
Thank you.
Yeah.
Although I feel you may need that energy for yourself, but I really love that you're giving me some anyway. Hashtag heart you. I heart you.
I heart you too. I heart you too.
How the hell are you? How the bloody hell are you?
Girl, I feel like I'm fighting for my life. Do you know? I was speaking to my therapist. My therapist was like, Penny, you sound like you're on the road to a burnout. But you know what's really sad? I genuinely don't see any options, and I'm just like, I'm kind of just having to surrender to the fact that this is what I just need to push through.
Yeah.
And just hope that my body can just push me through to the finish line. I went and spoke to my high school today, and that was so beautiful. But I think today, of all days, do you know that quote by Naira Waheed that says, "All the women in me are tired"?
Yeah.
All the black women in me, my ancestors, all of them, every single one.
From A to Z, top to bottom,
is tired.
I feel that.
And I just think, like, I love being a black woman.
Yeah.
But there's a deep sadness in me, I think, today of all days that I just...
Yeah. To be honest, I don't know how I'm going to make it through this episode because I already feel very teary.
I'm tearing up. And I just think, like, when you're brought on this earth, this isn't how life, I can accept that life is supposed to be hard for all of us, but I don't think it's supposed to be this hard.
No.
And not even I know it shouldn't be this hard. Because do you know how when they say, like, when you take a marriage vow, there's the whole for better, for worse, and there's things that, do you know how people are like, oh yeah, cheating's fine, but it's like, that's not the part of the worst part. That's not the worst part, because that's just, there's a black and white line and it's not supposed to happen. Yeah. And this is the same with life. Like, there's for better and for worse, and this is not.
Yeah. And I don't think life is supposed to be hard. I think there's, to your point, for better and worse, there's like some good bits and some bad bits, but I think at the moment the bad bits are really loud. Like, it's for, like, collectively for a lot of people, including us apparently. And it's really difficult to try and like focus on doing your best and focus on like the things that you want to do, and like at this point we can just about barely make it for the things that we have to, and it's just that sadness is just like really deep. Do you want to get your tissue? I'll get your tissue.
I think there's just a sadness for me. I don't even think the tears I'm crying are for myself. It's for all the young girls after us that also have, the young black girls especially, who also have to fight. And that's not what we were put on this earth to do. And I think this week, these last few months have just been hard, but I think it's just so hard to it's just hard.
It is
hard. Anyway, what's your love note for this week?
My love note is not so much a love. Like,
it's a note.
I was gonna like do this arty note one, like, because arty note, like, I just a lot of their stuff resonates in it, but the note for this week was I was listening to The Read, which is one of my fave podcasts.
after ours.
Obviously. That's why I said one of.
You need to be specific about the order.
And Kid Fury, one of the hosts, said, "The apocalypse is really long and boring." And I felt it. I heard it loud and clear in my ears, loud and clear in my heart, loud and clear in my soul. This gotta be the end, but it's also gotta
hurry it up.
I don't know. It's just it's everything that we've just said, right? It's just really difficult at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to push through.
And it's all we can do. Do you know?
Persevering. And I think also like there's just so much. I think sometimes I'll speak for myself. Sometimes it just feels like it feels like I'm not doing anything, and I'm right now, for me, it's like just like carrying on is like the max of my energy.
Yeah.
So it's like going to work is like, I know at least I've done that. And so like when you're literally at the point where I can't even like stay in work without like constantly crying. It's like, what the hell? And it's also that thing that we always kind of talk about. It's like we are all just like one thing away from being in hospital. We're all one thing, one act, one event, and it doesn't even have to be like this like great, sort of really significant event. I think because we have such a chronic existence of BS. Yeah. It's just a feather. And I don't know. I think let's just try and be gentle with ourselves and be kind and literally just rest and take your bloody naps. Take a nap. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just whatever you need to do, just do it, because
I hear it. But you know, I am grateful that if this is the end of the world, I am surrounded by the best of the best, the creme de la creme. But you've got this, and you know,
we've both got this.
We've both got this.
We've all got this.
We've all got this, and you know, I think I'm grateful that we have bodies that will give us like. Our bodies have, like, remember how we're talking about the bodies episode, how they've never let us down, and in those moments of us like this extreme burnout, our bodies also protect us. They make we hope that we don't have that day with the feather lands, but they are doing small things that kind of just force us to be like, listen, you need a break because you have so much greatness, you're needed and your work is needed, so take this rest, take this time, and come back and do what you can then. Yeah. So my love note it says, it's from a tweet on, I don't know, I think it looks like a book. Do you know what I mean? Like a back of a book, but I couldn't find what book it was. Basically it just says, finding yourself is not really how it works. You aren't a $10 bill in last winter's coat pocket. You are also not lost. Your true self is right there, buried under cultural conditioning, other people's opinions, and inaccurate conclusions you drew as a kid that became your beliefs about who you are. Finding yourself is actually returning to yourself. and unlearning and excavation
And excavation.
and excavate and finding yourself is actually returning to yourself and unlearning. And Danny, you're gonna have to say that word.
And excavation.
And yikes! And remembering who you were before the world got its hands on you. And I just think heavy on what they've just said. I'm gonna have to post this on our Instagram post so people can get it, because I feel like I just chewed and chewed. But this really resonates right now, because when I went to give this speech, it kind of just reminded me of what it is that I feel like I was put on this earth to do, and what it is that I really want to do with myself. But that thing of life gets in the way, and then all the little mistakes you've made, or all the things that you've not when you've not shown up as the best version of yourself, they kind of get in the way. And then also you have a society which also just, I don't know, there's a way in which you interact with the society around you, and it breaks you a little bit, and you just forget what it is what your calling is. And it's so nice to know that, like, I think even while we're going through these periods, or even when it might take us a bit longer to get to where it is we want to be, we are innately the things that we dreamed of. Like, we will always be them, and they don't need to be these massive, like, showcases.
Yeah.
Because however small we show up, it's showing up, and it's always been us, and that's how it was always. It's always it's been written in the stars. So,
I think as well, I've been on my algorithm. There's been a lot of like this idea that it's not a race or something like that. It's a journey, and I think, I don't know. For me, that really, I need to just keep reminding myself of that. Like, there is no actual race. Like, there isn't like, I need to be here at this point. As long as I am working as long as I'm like just doing what feels right for me in whatever season I'm in whatever time I'm in, and just making sure that the things I'm doing sit well in my soul, and like sit well in my heart, and like bring me the peace and joy that I would like that's enough.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
enough.
100%.
Yeah.
Jinx.
Yikes. So, this week, we shall...
This mighty week.
Damn. This mighty... Is anything weak?
Do you know what's so interesting? When we're talking about death, it was it was a lighter episode than this. But
interesting, isn't it?
Very.
This week we're going to be talking about culture and identity.
Yikes.
This is a very big topic, and we're going to kind of approach it with the lens of us being kind of Black, British, Ugandan, along with some of the intersections that we have within our own personalities and our own identities. But this is a kind of non-exhaustive list of things, realistically, because we've only got a few minutes. Do you know what I mean?
Not only a few minutes.
We've only got a few minutes, a few seconds. Got to hurry it up.
Yikes! Yeah.
But yeah. So I guess if we just kind of get right into it.
Yeah. But in the beginning.
What would you say some of what are some of the identities that you house within you?
So identities: Ugandan, Black, woman, nurse, sister,
human. Human being on earth. Please help.
SOS.
Someone. Do you know what song I always sing when I'm at work? I don't know if you guys have ever watched Smallville.
No, I've not.
It used to be, anyway, the theme song to Smallville is "Somebody Save Me. I don't care how you do it, just say." And it just continuously
I'm
is
so
relevant.
dead.
Anyway,
Not somebody save you.
Somebody
What are some
Save
of
Me.
your
Identities?
Yikes.
Identities. Well, like you, I'm very much woman, black woman. I'm a human. I'm a writer.
Ow. Poet. Is that
I'm-
the same thing?
do you know what? I don't think I identify as a poet.
Would you not?
No.
But
Yes.
you write great poetry,
Thank
so
you. I do write poetry, but
she is a bad bee.
I don't know if I would consider myself a poet. But like, what is that? Do you know what I mean? And I remember going to this like one event where the person was there was someone talking about what it means to be a poet. Anyway, like, does it if you're published, are you then a poet? Writing poetry.
Excuse me.
Right? Does writing poetry make you a poet? What is it that actually makes us all these different labels? And I just think that in itself is a really interesting conversation. I think we've talked about it before as well, in the sense of like, labels realistically are to help other people understand us. Like, most of the time, hopefully, we know who we are.
100%.
And we don't really need.
It's a them problem.
Yeah, we're just trying to communicate. I think because we understand it, but we have this need to be understood, right? Like, you want someone to. I mean, I do. We have this like this need sometimes to be understood and to feel known.
Definitely.
And labels can be very helpful with that. I think where it becomes a bit of a two-edged sword, or double-edged sword rather, is that with using labels, they can then restrict us, and they can not even just us, like, we can then feel restricted in our passions, in what to explore, in what we enjoy doing. And if I like this, then that means I'm this kind of person, and it would be weird if I liked C, or like, if I'm a writer, that doesn't really mean I could maybe, I don't know, do math or something. I don't know. I'm not doing math.
And that's the thing, like, with
the suggestion.
Yeah, and our culture plays such a big role into what labels we ascribe to and which labels we don't.
Yeah.
Really.
Definitely.
I went and Googled what the definition of culture is.
Yeah.
And I personally didn't agree with it. It basically said it's the ideas, customs, and social behavior of a particular people or society. I don't know. I was supposed to Google what ethnicity is, but I didn't. And this kind of, it makes sense, but at the same time, I just don't know.
Should I define? I'm going to Google define ethnicity, see if that helps.
Because I think oftentimes people confuse culture and ethnicity.
Yeah.
And then the way in which people they're interchangeably used and sometimes inaccurately interchangeably used, which creates a lot of issues. And I think those issues you can see within, like, say, healthcare and all these things. I did a module actually in uni called Intercultural Public Health, and it really opened my eyes up to like, is that the correct saying?
My eyes up too.
It opened my eyes to like what culture is, and so they presented this model by a gentleman called what's his name? Okay, so guys, just Google the cultural iceberg model, and this gentleman whose name I just cannot remember for the life of me. Danny, can you find it? The cultural iceberg model. He basically talks about surface culture and deep culture. So our surface culture is the food, the flags, it's the games that we play, the performances, our language, basically how we are seen. And that's why I say like culture and ethnicity are usually confused because of your surface culture is what somebody is seeing. Anyway, and then deep culture is our communication styles, our notions of like our manners, our friendships, our interactions with leadership, cleanliness, modesty, our idea of beauty, like beauty standards. Our deep culture also shapes our ideas of like what our relationship with time. And you know how we're always like, black people are not on time, and it's like, huh? Anyway, fairness and justice, our attitudes towards like young people, just different people within society, and our approaches to religion, courtship, raising children, marriage, decision making, and problem solving. And I never really took a second to appreciate how far reaching it is, the depth of it, ultimately.
Also, is it Edward T. Hall?
Yeah, sounds about right. He almost said
we'll go with it.
And when we think about like our own like Ugandan culture, I definitely feel like it's played such a massive role. Obviously.
I think, do you know when I think, because one of the questions that we were kind of pondering on in terms of like what we're talking about was how has Ugandan culture kind of informed how we are now. And to be honest, I find it a little bit difficult to like, some things are very like clearly Ugandan, but I find it difficult to maybe like remove that or like remove it from just like, I think because it's what I've grown up in. It's what I've grown up in. And also British culture is what I've grown up in. And there's obviously differences in terms of like those two things. But I find it difficult to say this specific thing is Ugandan, this specific thing is Ugandan, and this is how it's affected me, because I think it's all just become one big amalgamation of
definitely
me and what has created me, I guess.
And do you know what they talk about? They talk about this concept of culture being a fishbowl. So for me, when I'm in within this society, like the Western British society, I'm a black woman. I struggle to fit in, unless I'm in spaces where I'm around other like people of color. But when I go to Uganda, it's very much you're a black British woman, and it's like, oh, I don't understand your Luganda, but it's like I'm actually speaking the same Luganda as you are, so I really don't understand what you don't understand. Help me, because I speak great Luganda. Do you know what I mean? Like I speak fluent to the tongue Luganda, but I think what confuses people is the fact that I'm able to switch between two different languages and have two different accents while switching between the two. But I feel like for me, our culture has placed, I feel like I'm able to kind of just differentiate the two. So, for example, my old workplace, I don't know about you, like, do you know when you go to work, do you not feel like, because in our culture, the older generation, you give them the utmost respect, obviously. So when I'm in work, that's how I treat all the people older than me. But I forget that, like, I'm not a child. It's not a dynamic of parent-child. So these people, although they're older than you, you also have to check them because they're behaving like children. It's not the same as coming... Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so it creates such a weird power trip a little bit.
I hear that. I definitely hear that. And it's like remembering, like, we're all actually peers here, and like my opinion is just as important and informed as your opinion.
Definitely. I found that in my previous job, it's crazy. People they would say to me, "Penny, you're such a great neonatal nurse," and I'll be like, "Oh, really?" because I just bite my tongue. I wouldn't be able to just call people out for things that they're doing, but it's like, I know what I'm on about. If I call you out, it's because I know. But it's because they're older than me, I don't call them out, and that's because of my culture.
Yeah. And I think because of how I was raised by my very Ugandan mother, so
Hi, Mom.
I'm a bit like taking it. I take it a lot.
Girl.
And it takes a lot for me to get to that like boiling point where I'm like saying something, which I'm trying to move past, but that's the kind of thing that's like, informed my personality, unfortunately. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting at work. And to be honest, it's even just like outside of like even older people, it's trusting in it's that thing of like trusting in your own source.
Do you know what I mean?
Just because like sometimes like other colleagues like will come to me and be like, oh, you know this, and like be asking for my opinion, and I'm just thinking,
I'm a child.
I'm gonna find it. It's just basically saying I'm just a 25-year-old teenager, and I feel that a lot at work. I feel that a lot at work, and I don't even know where I was going with that, but yeah.
No, I hear it. And another thing, so Ugandan culture, when you're a woman, so because me and Danny come from the Baganda tribe, we have to, we have to kneel. So kneeling is a way of showing respect. And I'm just like, where did this come from? Where did this come from? Because if I look back in history,
probably came
full
with the
stop. And yeah, and I think this is a little trigger warning, by the way, guys. If it's a trigger warning about sexual harassment. In our culture, because we're not encouraged. What's the word? Would it be not encouraged? We're shunned for speaking up. Because there's so many things that we will see within our communities that when you bring it up, people don't protect you. And
there's a lot of respectability politics.
There's a lot of respectability politics, but to your own detriment.
Absolutely.
And you're biting your tongue to your own detriment.
Yeah.
When I was moving out my parents' home, so in our culture, women aren't supposed to leave. You're not supposed to leave your parents' home until you're married. When I was leaving my parents' home, there's a gentleman who went and took it upon themselves to try and talk to me about sex. And the long and short of this conversation was along the lines of, you're going to leave your parents' home and become a whore and start sleeping around and start using people. That's how people are going to see you. And I just thought, how inappropriate as a grown man that does not know me. What makes you think it's you, of all people, that needs to have this conversation with me? What makes you think you should be having this conversation with me? In what reality? Do you know what I mean?
But like, that's how empowered they feel because of the way that it's all set up, and like adults and especially men, they have like this ultimate control, and I can do this, and I can say this, and I can grab you in this way, and I can touch you in this way, and for a fact, no one's gonna say nothing about it.
And you know the thing is, and I don't know if it's you that was talking about it, how as like within our like Black Ugandan women, naturally our bodies, there's a way in which they are naturally. Yet these men start sexualizing us at such a young age. We used to have like a girls group within the community, and we went and brought up the fact that there's times when uncles are talking to us inappropriately. They are touching us inappropriately. There's an uncle once who came, and did I tell you about that time when he pulled my nose? And it's like, what are you? Why? What has possessed you to come into my personal space and touch my face?
Yeah.
That is so inappropriate. We brought it up to these ladies that we are being, this is what's happening to us because from these grown men. And these grown men, they turn around, their wives were like, yeah, the girls should dress appropriately, they're dressed inappropriately.
Yeah.
But your man is the same man who is out here sleeping around, has children on the side, yet he's married to you. What Bible are you reading? Because that Bible, the Bible that I read, they definitely say infidelity is not allowed. Personally, what are you doing laying with a woman who is not your the person?
Yeah. It's like, whilst there's like that inherent danger from like just like men in general in terms of like in the Ugandan sort of culture, it's like that much more. It's not much more damaging, but I guess it just reinforces itself in how it's perpetuated by women and older women who are supposed to be protecting us, and who are supposed to protect the young girls, and I mean that's how it keeps the cycle kind of continues, because whilst it's like the perfect opportunity, and it's like they always say this, oh, you know, like women, you know, you're such strong women, and you know, like how all of these specific aunties are kind of like, oh, come and you'll be such a great example to this one, you'll be such a great example to that one, and you're just like, it's just really sad that all of, especially if they would have experienced the same kind of uncomfortable situations, the more inappropriate touching and the inappropriate comments and the sexualization, and instead of them saying no, and I think perhaps part of the British culture then I mean, no, that it's not a specifically British thing, but I think being in a position where like we're not completely thoroughly like inside of the culture, for me has allowed, because I guess there's something different that I can to some extent kind of contrast it to. I feel more empowered to say something for myself, and I think that being out, because the other thing is, it's not even really being outspoken, it's just like saying no and saying I don't like this, or I'm not going to go and greet that specific uncle or that auntie, or I'm not going to go and do this ABC. You're then labeled as this, she talks too much, she talks out of turn, and she is wild and she's earthly, because there's also then that there's an aspect of Ugandan culture it's like Christianity is also to some extent cultural, because it's like people don't actually like go to church. They might not like, and you don't have to go to church to, you know, be a Christian, but there's just I don't go to church. But I think there's certain parts of Christianity that are used to subjugate in a similar way that they were used during colonization. They are used to try and control the person, the woman mostly. The woman mostly.
There's a lady that I was speaking to. She was basically saying how, do you see, for say people, migrants especially, the culture that they hold on to tends to be more dated, as in like it just tends to be, you understand what I mean, and so they hold on to the culture that they left with at that certain point they left the country, and if they were to go back, that's not what the culture is back home. People have moved on. I think their sense, I think in an attempt to hold on to their culture, they refuse to grow and kind of move with the times. And also I think people pick and choose what parts of their culture they want to adhere to and kind of stick with. Like, for example, that Kiki Palmer situation, that was in the news recently, and the man going to... there were so many things wrong with that whole situation, but patriarchal culture has these men in a chokehold. Patriarchal culture is killing men. Yeah. So why do you hold on so tightly to it? Yeah. It's not serving you, me, or anybody, but you're here dying on the hill. That's that. You went onto Twitter and decided to behave like a bum. You went onto Twitter and decided to behave like a fool.
Like, it's as if you're trying to shame her, but like, I thought you loved her.
And for him to be like, yeah, my wife, but where's the ring? If we're going by patriarchal thingies, where's the ring? Where's the ring, sir? Where's the more money that you're bringing to the table? Because what are you actually bringing apart from nonsense?
Yeah. I think there's, just to go back to picking and choosing, I think ultimately we have to pick and choose, in my opinion. I think maybe it's that we're trying to hold on to we're trying to hold on to our history in like the best ways that we can, and in doing that there's maybe like there's a, I don't know how to express, like there's
conflict.
Yeah, I guess it's like having to question every part of yourself when you question one integral thing about your culture. Because there's a lot of things, and I experience this for myself as well. There's a lot of things in Ugandan culture that I don't want to be part of. For example, even in my wedding, for example, right? So this like whole idea of dowry, I don't know. It's giving buying a woman for me, right? And you can have loads of different Ugandan people, and I think this is a practice that exists in loads of other cultures as well. No matter who you speak to, you're gonna find a different way of explaining what that is. But at its core, personally, how I see it, how I view it, is that it's an exchange of like, this girl, it gives me this, she does this, she does that, she does this, and you as a man are coming to take her away from me as the other man. So give me something for it, like give me something in exchange, and buy this labor that you're taking from me, essentially. And so I don't know. There's certain aspect of it that I myself don't want to engage in, and it can feel difficult to maybe even let go of that, because as someone who lives here in England, and also specifically, like our experiences, even though we're both Black British Ugandans who came here pretty much at the same time, it's interesting how similar but also how different our experiences are, because whilst I feel you've grown up in the Ugandan society, community, even in Uganda, even in England, sorry, that's not something that I have done per se. Like, I have grown up around like Ugandan people, sure, but we were kind of outside of the main Ugandan community, with a little bit of a sub thingy, and through that, all the children were a lot of my cousins that are here have been brought up here, and so I've grown up with that, and I have the prevailing, or like the biggest kind of traditions that are like Ugandan are things that I might not want to engage in, and it sometimes feels like by letting those things go, I'm almost letting go of like what the little that I know. Do you know what I mean? And that can be quite difficult. And I think ultimately that's I feel like a small example of what the bigger thing is, which is that I think a lot of people are trying to hold on to the Ugandanness that I don't know that they know, to your point, and critically thinking about all these different things means letting go, or not really engaging in a lot of the stuff that we do.
But you know what? Do you know when you say that? that thing of critically thinking, we don't critically think about our culture and what's informed our culture, because if we've been colonized by people, what's our actual culture? Because clearly, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Because all these things that we're doing, who brought them into? But we're so set in our ways that we don't want. It's good to grow. People, I don't know why do you know what I mean? It's good to grow, and it's hard though. It's hard as hell, because like you're saying, those small things are the things that define who you are.
Yeah. And that's what was so violent about colonization, is that they destroyed our history. They destroyed it. And to be honest, it's like, I'm a Ugandan person, you're a Ugandan person. Anything that we do is Ugandan.
Yep.
Innately. Because I am Ugandan. So.
Yeah. Another thing that we do a lot of is if we had £1 for every time we apologized, I kid you not, we would be so rich.
Yeah.
We would be so rich. But you know, I feel like that apology thing is both British and Ugandan.
Definitely.
And like, it's not, and we're here saying a lot about our Ugandan culture, but our British culture,
we are speaking about some of the negative aspects of Ugandan culture. This is not to say Ugandan culture as a whole is...
Ugandan culture is beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I think sometimes when you have those discussions, the negatives kind of come out a lot, but there is a lot of beauty in Ugandan culture and in being Ugandan, period, and in Uganda.
Honestly, 100%.
Just as a little bit of a disclaimer there.
Yeah. I think also British culture has... it also has its negatives.
It has a lot of negatives.
A lot of negatives. And you know, it's just there's a lot of trauma, I feel like. There's a lot of trauma within it. When I went back to therapy last year, my therapist was like, it was the first time I really acknowledged my British, that I'm Black British. Because all this time I've just been, oh yeah, I'm Black African, as though, like I knew it at the back of my head, but in the back of my mind even. But it was the first time I acknowledged that my British culture plays such a massive role, and it contributes to so much turmoil and like so much grief that I experience. That whole thing of speaking to your parents and trying to... I feel like my British culture, with that turmoil, it's like a pulling back and forth, because I'm trying to like tell my parents like, this is... I'm not saying to my parents to lose their culture. I'm not saying to them to lose anything at all. I'm just trying to explain to them that... Do you know that thing of a weather reporter trying to give a news report, but it's so windy you can't be heard? That's what it feels like.
Insert that meme of that weather lady.
And yeah, it's just jarring. But I think my British culture has just really made me very timid. I think it's very... Do you know that it's interacted negatively with my Ugandan culture and just gone, boo! That whole thing of not being able to talk, but then also being in a society which doesn't allow you to talk. And when you do talk, you're angry, you're this, you're that. So you resort to just being quiet.
It's like that. What's that game? Is it the mole? What do you know what I'm talking? What's it called? Whack-a-mole. That's it. It's like you lift your head up to say something here, they whack you back down. You lift your head up here.
Yeah. Another thing about, I think, with Western culture, maybe this is a massive generalization, but
I mean, all of these things, you can't really speak about it specifically. You kind of have to generalize, unfortunately.
Western culture, there's a lot of monoculture, and I think that monoculture will then conflict with people who come from a different culture, because while every single person is following a certain thing, you also have to... This is my British culture. I have to lose my sense of being, and I have to kind of shed all of that and be this soldier in an army and fight in a war that has nothing to do with me. Yeah. And it's so hard to kind of step out of that line and just be like, listen, this isn't for me. Yeah. Whenever, like, social media, fashion. Like, for example, fashion.
Yeah.
Fashion, there's like, what is it? It's called the World Consumer Trend. And basically that forecasts what the biggest trends of the coming year are going to be. And it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Let people just be. Let people, and the thing is, they'll predict and then they'll mass produce all these things, kill the planet, and then, oh, it's you, the working class people, that have to deal with this. Yeah. Long, long day. Anyway. Whew. Moving on swiftly. Danny, what cultural traditions or practices are important to you and why, and how do you uphold them in this day and age?
Cultural practices.
Or things that... Cultural practices are just... I don't even know if cultural practices is the thing, that is the word or the phrase.
Okay, well... things that are important to me. Family.
Yeah.
And this idea of community. I think part of something that I know is definitely part of my Ugandan
Don't get it twisted.
part of my Ugandan culture is just like the idea of family being central and it kind of having like some sort of unit. How has that then, I guess, evolved with the combination of being brought up in England is this idea of, I guess, found family and having because there's that understanding that unfortunately family can't always love us in the way that we need to be loved, and it can't show up for us in the way that it needs to. It's not always that safe, protective hub that we hope family to be. I think growing up, and potentially it's not just about growing up here, but with how I've grown up, I think I've been able to, I've had the opportunity to establish like really kind of good relationships with like my friends and make them just create like these deep connections with my friends that mean for me that they are also part of my family, and they're the family that I guess we have in adulthood, because
your chosen family.
Our chosen family. And I think that's really important, especially for people who are part of like communities like LGBTQ plus communities and trans communities, and just people who are marginalized and like not accepted in like the bigger sort of I don't know, like the bigger culture that you might identify with, like ethnically, that is. I think finding your people that root you, that protect you and ground you, is something that has been so vital for me as someone who kind of grew up not necessarily feeling different from my family, but I guess just feeling like I have to be a certain way to be accepted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel that.
Yeah, because like I used to have all of these I used to hold a lot, obviously, but I'd have like all of these arguments with like my mum over like things that I see now as part of like patriarchy, which is so part of Ugandan culture, has been disgusting. Discussing, not disgusting. All of these fights I'd have with my mum and my dad or whatever, or these quote unquote injustices that I would feel growing up in the family that I didn't have a language for, right? But I just felt so like adamantly like this isn't correct, this isn't right, something's wrong here, and not having that language, but just, I don't know, like, I don't remember what my point was. What was I talking about?
Just that idea that our culture has helped us find people who understand us when our family couldn't.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's so important.
Exactly. And I think especially finding people that resonate with like that specific part of you, those specific parts of you. And I think that's why it's so important to have like different friends.
Yeah.
To have like this, because you can't, one person isn't going to be everything for you, and they can't be realistically.
Like,
so it's important having these different people that just connect with us in loads of different ways, and having that, creating that system.
And we were saying as well, like within like our little trio, we're such different people.
Yeah.
And we all have our own, we all lead our own lives, but it's like, it's nice to have a base and have like a firm structure that you know you can fall back onto when life is just too much, or that those times when like that validation. Do you know, sometimes when it can be hard growing up in a family where your own opinions are considered incorrect, and so you kind of question your reality a little bit, because it's like, wait, are we all seeing the same thing? Do you know?
I do.
And so it's being able to be like, are you seeing this crazy stuff? And then someone else like, yeah, I'm seeing that crazy stuff too.
My mom said the same thing. I'm like, right?
She can't be right. We're not tripping.
Do you know what? I think it was my sister sent me this meme of like this family that was outside of Buckingham Palace. And they were just taking a picture, and someone outside of the camera just comes in and starts talking about like, well, the royal family is actually really terrible and all this type of jazz. And I sent it to my sister, and I was like, me. And it's all fun and jokes to kind of like be the person who's constantly like, well, actually, or I don't think that's right, or I don't want to do that, and
I am the problem.
It can feel like it takes a toll being like. Yeah. Being someone who feels like constantly like other. And that's not to say like none of my siblings felt the same way. I'm sure everyone did in their own exactly. They had all their own experiences, and also that's not to say that I can't find any sort of connection within my family. That thing of like,
we do love our family, by the way.
We do. I love my family a lot, and they connect to certain parts of me. Do you know what I mean? Definitely. But I think with growing up and creating my own identity and rather it's not fine. We've talked about this. It's not finding, excavating.
Yes.
Who I am in like this point in my life and in this point of existence and life generally. It's important to find those people outside of that as well.
And you know what you always talk about? Oh, was it on the Red Table Talk when you were saying how people were actually just brought on this earth? Do you know how Jada was saying that? And they just so happen to be a mum, a dad, or this. And you said that one person cannot be our everything. And I feel like sometimes, I don't know, depending on people's like relationships, people will have children and think that this is going to be my everything. And this is the person that I'm going to kind of
tell everything to,
lay my burdens on. And it's like, they're not, you're a human being with your own journey that's supposed to be on this, the thing that your role in this whole thing was to bring me here, nurture me, so I can also take on this journey. Yeah.
But sometimes it feels like families have this thing of like, it's us against everyone else.
And the thing is, family's not even always a safe space. There's so many people who I'm sending love to who that idea of it's us against the world, but it's like it's us, but it's like this us isn't even safe for me. Yeah. So how can I go against the world? What you mean? I'm against you.
And I just think of like, you know, being in a situation like that where it is all you have been programmed with is that the world is unsafe, other people, you can't rely on other people, and no one is going to have your best interests at heart except us. And yet, even in the family that you're in, they are hurting you in a fundamental way. Yikes. And it's how isolating how isolated those individuals must feel. Like, to your point, sending all the love and all the strength to find more and have more for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really, I think it can be really scary, like the idea of like not having family, I think.
Yeah.
Like for some people it is like a very real reality that they have had to let go of people, all of the people,
and that's okay as well, you know.
It is okay.
Because as much as,
I was going to say, it is okay. And also it's very, very scary to just like, with how society is as well, like constantly telling you need to put your socks up, you're alone, just essentially like perpetuating that whole thing of like, I don't even know, that whole thing basically. Yeah. It can feel really scary to leave the people who you thought were your like roots.
Yeah.
Especially when perhaps you haven't had the space or the tools to really build that with other people. And
you know, I hope people realize it is 100%, and I hope people realize that whilst your family's everything, listen, it's really not, because if people are hurting your being and they're inflicting both emotional and physical violence on you, and you celebrate being away from celebrate it, because this one life that you have, you actually did not come in this life to suffer. You did not come to suffer.
Parents were like, we have parents, or we have like guardians. They're supposed to guide us, give us the tools to then go forth and live our own lives. Like, that's what this interaction is supposed to be.
Yep.
And that's like pretty much it.
Heavy on that.
Like, they have lived and they have experienced certain things that we hope that they then help us to not experience. But in a way that is guidance, not control or ownership.
Yes. And I think people,
parents definitely forget that.
They do. They forget that they're supposed to have a life outside themselves, like outside having children.
That part. That heavy on that. And do you know what? Sometimes, I imagine it definitely comes from a place, or it can come from a place of, I want to protect this person.
Yeah.
I want to protect them from like the ill that I know that the world has.
To an extent. Because
but that ends up showing up and manifesting in a very like violent, restrictive, oppressive way. That then means that we can't unleash and explore and be who we were, like, or who we always were, who we always are, who we will be. And
definitely.
This is a reminder to what? This is a reminder to I'll think about it and come back to you.
I'm screaming. My some of the cultural things that I've learned, or things that I kind of carry with me from my Ugandan culture especially, is bringing people together. I love how we are able to bring people together over food. First of all, Ugandan food is actually the best food that's ever.
And that's on period.
And that's on period.
And that's on facts.
Let me tell you guys.
That's on facts, no printer.
If you're in the UK and you happen to be in London, I need you to get yourself to Stratford to a restaurant called Exceline, because they sell the most incredible Ugandan food ever. It's like home cooked. It reminds me of food from back in Uganda.
Yeah.
And I'm not even being paid for this, by the way. Disclaimer. So it's real. It's real. I love I love bringing people together with food. It's a celebration. I love that. I don't really have much more to add to that.
There isn't much more. I think a really big part of Ugandan culture is the idea of community, and it's eating as well, and that's something that I think is also it's evident through, I think, our podcast and the things that we talk about, and the sort of where we want the podcast to go in terms of like building this community for ourselves as well as and growing together and learning together and eating together and having fun together and existing in all of these, through all these different emotions and times together. Because
but I think that's what African culture is. Do you know what I mean? And do you know how we're saying how we don't know what things were like before colonialism, but when you hear those it's not a fable, those sayings that are like, it takes a village.
Parable? Is that what it is?
Maybe a parable. God knows, they're probably lying to each other. Let me tell you another thing.
The blind.
Blind leading the blind. That's another thing. It takes a village. It takes a village within, not just to raise a child, but so many different, within all the different aspects. I am the
child that needs to be raised in this community.
But yeah.
Okay, I guess maybe to round it up, we're made of loads of different things inform who we are and inform as Penny said in the beginning, like opinions on literally anything you could think of. It's culture, and I think we just have to, especially as people who most likely, if you're listening to this as well, straddle more than one culture. Like you're born here, you were born somewhere else and you've been raised here, or your parents are born somewhere else and have raised you in a specific way that might be different to the culture that you actually have grown up within. You're allowed to pick and choose. Pick and choose what works for you and what resonates with who it is that you're trying to be and who it is that you are, maybe. And just run with that. Yeah.
And do you know another thing? Do you know that thing the quote that I was reading this morning about, at the start of the episode about how, is it excavating?
Excavating.
Yikes. I literally cannot. What the word that Danny said, we are stars, we are our ancestors, all these different things, they are within us. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. We don't have to look so far for these things that we believe to be true. Yeah. Because it's
we are them.
We are them. We are them. And when something is kind of like your nervous system is saying to you, no, that's your ancestors, that's your intuition, that's all these things that are saying to you, something's not right.
Do you know what's been actually coming off my TikTok is this thing of like the universe whispers first. Ooh. And then it shouts. Ooh. And like the whispering bit is things like intuition. It's like when you feel like I don't know, maybe you can't put a finger on what it is, but you're like, something here is not making sense to me. And that might be the universe whispering. Yeah. Or God whispering.
What does it sound like when it shouts?
Mental breakdown, probably.
Yikes. Yeah. And on that note, we'll move on to the lazy person's guide to saving answer. So what's your guide?
I have not even thought about this. Okay. Why don't you go first?
So mine is basically I learned from my intercultural public health module that being in a culture is like being in a fishbowl. Mm-hmm. And if you don't leave this fishbowl, if you don't come out of this fishbowl and go into the big wide world and try and find Nemo, you never realize how much existence and how much life and how much there is outside of you.
What I'm hearing is travel.
I'm screaming.
That's what I'm hearing you say.
Really and truly, I just said, go step out of your own community, go to an event, a space, go somewhere outside your own your own circle of influence, and
your algorithm.
Step out of it. Confuse the FBI agent, and just learn. There's just so much to learn. Like, if you're not learning, you know that whole thing of feeling stagnant. Moving is better than being stood still. Yeah. So step out your own thingy, and not thingy being the key word. Just learn. It's so important to learn about other people's culture. If you've got children, introduce them to other cultures, so people don't say dense stuff, because it's rude and it's offensive. We're in 2023. Yeah. Like, stop saying stupid things. You know?
I do know.
What's your lazy person's guide?
Talk to your parents, or talk to your to older family members about, like, their lives.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Especially like their like, even like Google get to know you questions, and like just ask them to your parents or to your grandparents, and just like learn more about who they are outside of their relation to you. I think that's my love note. It's always really interesting when you ask older people, and that's why I actually really enjoy working with older people, because of that reason. Whilst it can be racist and like horrific,
I'm screaming.
They also have really interesting takes and really interesting stories that you would never know outside of definitely. Kind of engaging with them in that very specific way. Yeah. So I think
they do have a lot of gems.
Speak to your family, speak to family members, speak to an older generation.
Even like younger people, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because like you're younger, because the way where we're at now, you don't know what's happening. No. Yeah. Because their experiences are they're most likely completely different to what ours were.
So maybe find someone that you think you know, and then ask them getting to know questions. I have these cards from this company called The And, where they just have conversations. They're on YouTube, and have these like really kind of intentional conversations about like loads of different things. So like there can be questions about what's your biggest regret, or what's something that I can learn from you. You just like these very kind of what would you call them, like
Pacific, JK.
Intimate conversations. So I think maybe find questions like that and ask them to people that you think you know, and have a conversation.
That's true.
And see what you learn.
Yep.
Because that's part of your culture too, I guess.
Yep.
On that
note, let's continue this conversation on our socials. Our Instagram and Twitter at the Off Duty Pod. Our Gmail is offdutypodsubmissions@gmail.com.
And we'll catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
Bye.